I used to teach psychology to my students, and entry level Psych 101, and we would go over the basic principles of behavioral conditioning and biases and all of that. And the more time I spent on social media, the more I started to see, this is basic reward mechanism, right? This is operant conditioning. That these apps have been designed to exploit our vulnerabilities. The flip side of that is if you have an understanding of how your human brain functions, Jocelyn, do you like human brains? If you have an understanding of how it functions, and if you have an understanding of how the technology functions and the relationship between those things, you can use those vulnerabilities, like you can use that knowledge to trick yourself out of it. Like if you can get yourself sucked into it, you can also use the exact same behavioral conditioning principles to drag yourself away from it.
Woo, welcome. You have now entered Mad Warfare, mutually assured distraction, where we explore the weird, terrifying, and sometimes hilarious ways war is fought today, and how we can all protect our minds before we go too mad to find them.
Oh my!
Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern.
Okay, you talk if you haven't got a brain.
Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern.
Breaking news today, listeners. Women might be underestimated. When you think of warfare, you probably don't think of teenage girls, and that would be your first mistake. Today, we're talking about how soft power, social media, and girlhood have become one of the most underestimated forces in modern warfare. Our guest today has been practicing psychological operations since she was 6 years old. She since graduated to earn a master's in psychology and advises the government on communications and organizational change. She's here to show us why young women may be the most overlooked and effective fighting force out there. Please welcome Elizabeth Tate.
Woo!
Thank you. Air horn.
That's a hair. Oh my gosh.
How did you hear about this psychological operations when you were 6 years old?
Yes, this is true. This is my origin story, perhaps my villain origin story. I'll let you all be the judge of that, of whether this behavior is ethical or not. So once upon a time, I was a littler girl, and I'm from Oklahoma. So I went to school in a small town in Oklahoma where there are a lot of boys, and they tend to be rowdy out there in the country. And so I was at elementary school in the first grade having a great time, except every day at recess, I was tormented by this group of 3 boys. I still remember their names. I will not dox them, but I remember. And
You would for a second.
I will be benevolent. They tormented me every day. They would push me down. They would pull my hair. They would do this medieval torture thing where they would like all grab a limb and drag me through that like playground pebbly.
I hear you. And you weren't Gumby, so yeah, tracking.
Right. I was not having a good time. And I had observed, and I remember some of my earliest memories consciously observing that when the boys would have conflict with one another, they would just fight each other, right? Like they would fight back if one of them was picking on another. And I had no upper body strength. I still don't really. And I was like, oh no, I can't really do that, right? I kind of flail around, but it doesn't really do anything. So if I want to get myself out of this situation, I'm going to have to do something. So time goes on, recess continues to be terrible. And I made an ally, my first grade teacher, and I was a classic teacher's pet. And so one day I had had enough. And I went to her, kind of pulled her aside and started the waterworks. And I was like, please, you have to help me. This is what's happening every day, and they're awful. And after that, I don't remember what she did to get onto them, but it was effective because they never bothered me again. And I learned very early on, okay, if I want to protect myself, if I want to get myself out of a sticky situation, I can't really use brute strength. So I have to be a little clever. I have to kind of psychologically, maybe not manipulate, that word has a negative connotation, but I have to strategically, psychologically alter the situation to get the result that I want. And that was 20 years ago, and I've been using these techniques ever since.
Yeah, it's a good point that one of the things we talk about a lot, Sean, that's we talk the difference between kinetic boom booms and physical brute force versus cognitive warfare and this whole basis, like you can win
Yeah.
a fight without ever firing a shot or a punch, right? And I'm also surprised. So you could just cry on command. Are you like in Hollywood?
I was a theater minor in college, so I never made it that far, but I did hone that talent for years to come. It has saved me in many situations. But now, of course, if any loved ones are listening to this, they're going to think about any time I've
Oh
ever
no.
been like, wait, hold on.
Sorry to make your Thanksgiving a little more awkward. I'm sorry about that.
Hey, this will spice it up a little bit.
And how'd you find your way into advising government and the big boys?
I ask myself that all the time. I truly don't know because, again, I'm a girl from Oklahoma and I just kind of woke up one day. I live in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And yeah, I'm a consultant for the federal government. And every day I type on my little computer and I'm like, how did I get here? I don't really know. It was kind of one thing led to the other. My first kind of big girl job while I was still in grad school was working for the local government. And so I had a cute little office in the little county courthouse, and that was all very fun and fine and dandy. And then I went from there to a state government job, and then from there to federal, and now here I am.
Or
Social engineering all along the way.
yeah.
Exactly. Well, spoiler alert for the audience, we did have a conversation before this recording. And when we were kind of scripting out this episode, I was telling you guys about how I kind of got the idea to start talking about this was I was taking my annual security training for work. And one of the things that they were warning about is tailgating, which is the kind of cute colloquial term for when a malicious outsider will gain entry to an organization to do their nefarious deeds by kind of flying under the radar. So they'll have somebody else badge them in, say, oh, I forgot my badge, or can you let me in, whatever. Or sometimes they don't say anything at all and they just kind of sneak on by. And so we had that conversation a few weeks ago, but this has actually happened to me again in recent memory. In like the last 2 weeks, I got invited to a happy hour and it was at somebody's swanky apartment. And so this building had pretty good security,
Mhm.
and every single entry point had a little scanner where you had to have a key fob to get in. And
Mhm.
I did not have one of those. I was texting the person who was hosting, like, hey, I'm here. But I figured it's going to take them forever to get down to the lobby. So somebody was, sure enough, they're like carrying a package in. It's the literal example. They like got in their mail or whatever, and they're carrying the package in. And so they use their little key fob and they get to the lobby door and they hold the door open for me. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And so then I'm in the lobby and I'm like, okay, well, now I'm here in the lobby. I gotta get from the lobby to the rooftop. So you're in the lobby, and then the next fob entry point you have is to get to the elevator. So I just kind of wait by the elevator, pretend I'm like looking on my phone, like I'm just a normal person doing whatever, just tee hee hee, waiting for the elevator to take so long. And then somebody badges up, they get to the elevator, they ask me what floor, I'm like, the roof, please. They push the button and I get up to the rooftop. I did get stuck at that point. That was the last entry point, and I did
Yeah.
at that point have to cave and have someone let me in. But I got from the street to the roof of this fancy building, and this kind of thing happens regularly enough to where I find it interesting, right? Because stereotypes, we all make judgments based on the 2-second snapshot we get about someone when we initially see them. And so I don't look like a malicious intruder necessarily, but I think about that often when I'm in a space, that it's a good thing that I'm not because I do find myself in a lot of secure areas, right? And it's a good thing that I don't have nefarious purposes. But I think this happens often, right? People see a perky little lady and they think like, oh, it's just a girl, what could happen? And I think that just a girl power could be
Just,
harnessed,
just a girl
good or
power.
evil, right?
Again, yeah, you didn't have to like Mission Impossible your way in with like harnesses to get onto
Yeah,
the rooftop. You had to do like the old Batman's from the '60s where they're just
right.
walking on the building. So
No, no one asked a single question. No one, I don't
a
think anyone even knew
single
that.
question, not even. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and I've told probably both of you the way that I snuck into the job I got quit from was I had no more access with my key fob and they like disabled my codes and everything. So I just kind of like do. I'm just chilling. I'm just like getting into work slowly, the work I'm not welcome back to, and then waiting to open the door. So I got escorted out, but
Oh,
did make it.
unfortunate.
Got in.
You
But
know,
yeah, I mean, that's a tactic, right? You can do that. I'm digging through my purse. Oh, my badge must be at the bottom of my bag here. Let me just, and then somebody, some kind stranger comes along,
yeah.
lets you in.
I'm also so it's like part of the power, the soft power
Yeah,
is to
very good.
sneak in, and be unassuming. The people who are listening are like, yeah, we knew it. We always knew women were manipulators and they shouldn't be trusted. And now it's just like confirmation bias hearing us talk about this.
I could absolutely see a reaction to that because hot take, I think Freud was right about a lot of things. I'm probably going to get canceled for saying that. But I do think the Madonna whore complex still kind of holds up. And I think when we talk about stereotyping of women and negative perceptions, I do think we often see both of those categories, right? Of, oh, they're either so nice and peachy and wonderful and they can do no wrong, or yeah, like women are evil temptresses who use their feminine wiles to disrupt things, and that's awful. And so I can certainly see somebody having that confirmation bias, right? And thinking, oh yeah, all women that are nice and unassuming must just be acting that way to get something they want. You can certainly be manipulative in a negative way, and that will probably have consequences of its own. Or you can realize, yeah, I actually do have more influence than I thought. It may look different than it looks like for men or other people in my circle, right? It might be that soft power, it might be my soft skills that aren't always valued, but that is still a kind of power, and I can use that, right, to get the best outcomes for both myself and the people I care about, the mission that I'm trying to serve. Like you said, Sean, a war can have an end. There can be like a noble end, right, and a good cause that you're fighting for. And so I think I would challenge women to kind of figure out what they do want to fight for and how they want to use their powers for good. This is kind of becoming a hiring and talent question too
Mm,
in the security space, right? It's if you cut out a certain demographic, you are losing out on a talent pool that has a very different skill set than maybe the people that you already have, who sure may be getting the job done. But I think it becomes a question of what else could be possible, right? What else could we be accomplishing if we tapped into this market, this force of women who have these soft skills that end up being really powerful, because everything we do is about relationships, right? And
yeah,
psychology. And I think women are natural relationship formers. And I think that can be super valuable.
it's in this space. There's so much also comparison of uh, here's what women can't do that men can't do, and I never see the flip side of here's the things that like women can't do.
As we've said, it's a very different skill set, but that doesn't mean that one is necessarily better than the other. It
Hmm.
just may mean that one is more strategic to apply to a certain scenario than another.
Hmm.
Yeah, and speaking of relationships, we were talking about what is it called?
Yeah. Are we dating the same guy?
Because you were talking about, we were going over this earlier, how, and not to overgeneralize or anything, but often the power of women is sharing and collaborating. And there's more of a culture, if you will, of sharing what's going on and what's going wrong and what's causing pain and how to maybe seek vengeance, but also, for good or for bad, as you're saying, to what end are you using this? But I think that was one particularly interesting use case. Can you explain for the audience what's going on in that scenario?
Yeah, so we talked about off air that there's kind of this new-ish online trend of groups popping up. I think from what I've heard, not on the major social medias, but I think from what I've heard, it's usually Facebook where these happen. Audience, correct me if I'm wrong, write in. But there are these groups that have started popping up that are called, Are we dating the same guy, DC? Are we dating the same guy, Philadelphia? Are we dating the same guy, San Francisco? And so there are these localized groups that are primarily run by women online who, if they have a concern that perhaps they're seeing someone who may be seeing a lot of other people, they'll kind of post some details like, hey, this guy's being shady. Here's some information. Has anybody else had interactions with this person? Is anybody this person's wife, right? Like, and so they'll do that kind of web sleuthing and information gathering. And that opens up a whole fascinating can of worms about, is that ethical to do that kind of web sleuthery and get the dirt on people? But I do think, to your point, Jocelyn, that for some people, those groups are maybe out of vengeance. But I think for a lot of women, we want to look out for each other and for our own kind, right? And I think so many of us have unfortunately had negative experiences. And so there is that protective element of, okay, when we all band together, we can kind of look out for each other and say, hey, maybe you should be concerned about this person. I think it does come out of a good place of, let's all look out for each other. Let's kind of take care of our own. But I've also seen that devolve into chaos online, which I think I mentioned briefly when we talked about this off air too, that back in the day when the show was good, I used to be a big fan of ABC's The Bachelor, the reality dating television show. Great way to pass time watching The Bachelor with the girls. And anytime anything happens on that show where someone is like a little bit suspicious or whatever, there will be all these posts online where people are like, I found this person's voting records, I found their mom's address, which I think is way too far, especially for a reality television show contestant that you don't know and will never meet in real life. Between, let's have an online movement to help each other, and let's have an online movement to publish a bunch of information about a person because they said something that we didn't like on a TV show.
Right.
Let's look at that purely from the skill set and some of the emergent kind of things you mentioned on that. I probably know folks who are in OSINT, open source intelligence, that probably don't know like how to get voting records and things around. So again, just naturally, however, to find for whatever reason, even if it is for fandom's sake, that is like a skill set. A lot of these things probably have to come from like the ground up and grassroots. And the fact these things at least exist, and if they inform anybody, and again, as much as they can, not get co-opted or those times where the people kind of like hotbox a little too much in terms of spinning their own webs. That's a natural thing that folks in information operations, they would hope to be so lucky to get a network like that going. So I just want to talk about it purely in terms of skill sets, how amazing that is.
Mm-hmm. Well, that poses a question for me. I know you're the host and you're supposed to ask the question.
Ask it. Go ahead. She has the mic.
Returning to, oh no, watch out. She's like,
return fire. Uno reverse card. Go on.
Uno reverse. I'm asking a question because I know, Sean, you've had a lot of security experience. I do like government consulting light, but I know you've had more experience in that space. If you could design your ideal intelligence hero, right, or your super soldier, I'd be interested to see how you would describe that person, because I think a lot of the skills would match up with a young lady.
You want to have a mix of all these folks like on your bench that you can pull from, depending on like whatever the need or whoever you're targeting. You want to have that kind of diversity no matter what it is. I said the secret word. That's one of the naughty words. But it is one of those things where you just want to have that kind of mix in there, whatever it is, and all these different skill sets. So again, some of these things that may be underappreciated. I bet you I can think of probably situations where Having a thorough knowledge of The Bachelor could probably be very helpful for a situation, even though that's usually seen as something possibly like poo-pooed on or a waste of time. You kind of want to have it all, which with as many people as your budget allows you to. So it's always about the Avengers. It's not necessarily about like one single super
Right.
person, but you want that whole mix as much as you can. Yeah,
You want Taylor Swift and the Swifties.
correct.
Yes.
Especially in my one of the spaces I kind of occupy around information operations. So we're supposed to know a lot about, like the digital information space. And I'm not going to name names. I will tell you one. So this was about 5 years ago. And also, this also be frightening to you. I'm going to be 39 soon. So I was like 34 at the time. I was easily the youngest in the room, and I consider myself one of the world's youngest boomer. But for some reason, I was the youngest person in that room. In this room, they mentioned two things. One, do you know what Twitch is? And I was one of like five people out of like the 60 that were there. And then they went into that same conversation like, what, people pay money to watch people play video games? It was cute.
Right.
But then the next thing was, who here knows what Discord is? I was the only one who knew what it was. They know what it is now after some of these leaks that happened recently. Now they had to know what it was, but I say that because that's where the folks are going to hide, where you're not looking. I remember during kind of the Al Qaeda days and the ISIS days, they were like in World of Warcraft like chat rooms because they're like, oh, no one's gonna like check theirs. They go to these places that folks aren't necessarily checking, or maybe again like old fogies, necessarily haven't heard. But that's a gap that we're not necessarily thinking of.
Great segue, because now I'm so excited to talk about social media. You're mentioning Discord, Twitch, all these things that maybe an older person, I'm not going to discriminate against all older people, but they're probably like, what's a Twitch? I don't understand. Is this a medical condition? What are we talking about? That's natively where my generation has grown up, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
the online generation. And I think one of the reasons I like this podcast, not to kiss ass too much, but one of the things I like that you guys do is point out that warfare, going back to Jocelyn's point, is not always the sonic boom, right? It's often the quieter, smaller change. And I think social media, I don't care how boomery I sound when I say this, I think social media is the number one most underestimated tool for warfare right
Mm-hmm.
now. And there's starting to be more recognition of social media's power, but I feel like I've just been crying that from the hilltops for several years now, right? That this thing that we're all interacting with, that we're just carrying around on our tiny little pocket computers, is so powerful. And I think for a lot of seasoned intelligence professionals, or other industry professionals, they kind of see it as child's play, like, oh, it's just the kids on their phones, it's just the girls on Instagram. But it's incredibly powerful. I mean, we've seen examples, right, of somebody getting radicalized because of something that they saw online, and that builds up, and
Mm-hmm.
then they end up doing something terrible in the real offline world. Or
Yeah.
even if it's not something terrible, I just think that what happens online influences people's real life behavior so much. And I'm like, why are we not talking about this more?
Speaking of talking about it more, you wrote a book on it. Control your scroll, right? You're talking about our need for that, like constant entertainment and being distracted, mutually assured distraction, if you will.
Wink.
Uh, and yeah, that the war over our attention, how we're getting influenced. And are there other examples that come to mind of how women have played a role in this, like co-opting attention or anything related to that?
I think so. I wanted to check a data point. I wanted to have some numbers. So before I logged on for this recording, I Googled, I was trying to think of like the only influencer. I don't know all of like
Mm-hmm.
who's popular now, but I was like, who's an influencer? And so I looked up, how many followers does Addison Rae have? For the audience, Addison Rae is a TikTok dancer girl. It's a whole genre of entertainer now. She makes dances on the app TikTok, and she has 156 million followers across social
Holy
media
moly.
platforms. If you try to imagine 156 million people, it's mind. That's so many people. And sure, some of those are probably Russian bots. I don't know. But if even a small fraction of those 156 million people are like really active consumers of the content
Mhm.
and are real people, that's crazy. That's so much influence for one young lady to have. And if her target audience is also young women of similar interests and similar backgrounds, that's a lot of power. If she wanted to have a really strong political opinion or be tied to any kind of cause and get that message out to her followers, that could affect a very large number of people. A lot of us are spending a lot of time on social media, and a lot of the most popular content creators who are really shaping things in the real world are young women. I mean, the term influencer, it's right in the name, right? They influence people. And I just think, yeah, there's still this perception of, they're just making their silly little videos, but those silly little videos add up.
Yeah, like that thought of as frivolous. Wasn't there was another young woman a few years ago who was it was sort of pretending that it was just a watch me put on makeup kind of video, but she had a point about one of the wars. It was just
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
like
Right.
Interesting.
thinking about that, talking about it being
Mhm.
underestimated because we have no idea how these people with millions and millions and millions of followers might be subtly or not so subtly injecting messages or opinions or swaying votes. And I think we tend to look at only really, really big names,
Sure.
but not really looking at this whole universe of others who have this huge following. I think that's a big gap. Big gap, America. National security.
Well, I think because it still goes back to this idea that social media is kind of just child's play and it's its own thing, and I think it's not recognized as much as traditional media. And I think for a lot of people, there's still this perception that apps and social media platforms are not the same thing and they're not as powerful. But I think we're past that. I think we're truly in the internet social media age at this point. And I'm like, come on, everybody. Like these things are huge.
Is this one of the reasons you wrote your book, Control Your Scroll? Were you noticing your own getting manipulated or getting persuaded or falling into any of these traps?
Indeed, yes. So I guess I should give the little elevator pitch of what is Control Your Scroll. It's a book. I wrote it. It's coming out on July 22nd. I don't know when this episode releases, but it's coming out on July 22nd. And it's about how once upon a time I used to be addicted to social media. At the height of the COVID lockdowns, when there was nothing to do, I had like 10 to 12 hours of screen time a day. It was absurd. Just all my time on primarily Instagram, but also some of the other apps. And I noticed the psychological warfare again, not in the dramatic sense that we think of, but it started changing my perceptions of myself, my community, just my ecosystem around me in a powerful way. And once I started to realize, oh, this all this content I'm consuming and just the act of consuming the content itself, just the being sedentary and stationary and scrolling on my phone all day is having such an effect on my behavior. And then I was kind of in denial for a while, right? I was like, it's just a phone, it's just an app. How can it be that bad? But when you pull yourself away from that sort of thing, I think you realize this really does have an impact on me. And I noticed it even now, even with just like a news app. I'm sure we've all had the doom scrolling experience where you're having a fantastic, fine little day, and then your phone pings and you open a headline and you read something that makes you upset, and you're like, great, now I'm pissed off. And I was totally fine 5 minutes ago. If I had not looked at this, I would have continued to be fine. And so I just did not like the person I was becoming when I was spending a lot of time on social. I was very materialistic because, targeted ads and wanting to keep up with the trends and buy things. I was comparing myself to other people all the time and just generally ungrateful and just upset by all of the world chaos, right?
Mhm.
Especially during the pandemic. It was just our brains were not made to consume that much negative information or that much information, period. So Yeah.
Oh, a little interruption to say this episode is made possible by Randori Resources. If you'd like to train your mind the way athletes train their bodies, check out Randori Resources, randori-resources.com. Yeah. How do you control your scroll now, or is that why we need to buy the book?
Buy the book. It's a constant battle. It's a constant battle. It gets a lot better. Once you get through, like the phases of recovery, the initial withdrawal is really bad, and then it gets better. But even so, every day I have to fight the allure of the tiny black screen. And it doesn't matter that I've now deleted my accounts on the major social media platforms and haven't had them for a while. I've already mentioned scrolling Reddit. I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't, but LinkedIn at one point. Like I still have access to the internet. And every day I have to remind myself, right? What kind of choice do I want to make? How do I want to feel? Is this going to help me accomplish my goals professionally, personally, psychologically, whatever it may be? I I think one thing that has really interested me and part of what motivated me to write the book is it's become sort of popular knowledge now. Used to be a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, but now it's kind of
Okay.
matriculating into pop culture. But we now have an understanding that these platforms were intentionally designed to be
Oh,
addictive and to
yeah.
be attention zapping monstrosities. And a lot of very, very bright people designed these platforms very specifically to exploit vulnerabilities in human psychology, which is part of my background. I went to grad school for psychology. I used to teach psychology to my students, and entry level Psych 101. And we would go over the basic principles of behavioral conditioning and biases and all of that. And the more time I spent on social media, the more I started to see, oh, this is basic reward mechanism, right? This is operant conditioning. That these apps have been designed to exploit our vulnerabilities. The flip side of that is if you have an understanding of how your human brain functions, Jocelyn, you like human brains. If you have an understanding of how it functions, and if you have an understanding of how the technology functions and the relationship between those things, you can use those vulnerabilities, like you can use that knowledge to trick yourself out of it. Like if you
Yeah.
can get yourself sucked into it, you can also use the exact same behavioral conditioning principles to drag yourself away from it. And
Excellent.
that's one of the main reasons I wanted to write it because there's some anecdotes in there, right, about here's what it was like when I was addicted to social media. Does this sound like you? But then there's also practical reflection questions and exercises to help people who maybe don't have a background in psychology realize, oh, this is what's happening. This is why I feel like I literally physically cannot stop checking Snapchat. And here's how I can stop doing that.
Right. We're like the rats at the cocaine drip in the lab.
Yeah,
Yes.
that experiment. Yeah.
And until we are dead. It's part of the trick, like making real life as attractive as it's like we're tricking your brain into being rewarded for stillness or even boredom or something like that.
I'm nodding voraciously over here. Yes, I'm gonna break my neck. That and that is true. I think that's part of it, right? Because you can't if you're gonna replace you need to replace a stimulus. If you're gonna get rid of a stimulus, you need to replace it with something that's at least as appealing, if not more, and hopefully healthier. And I think real life is the anecdote. But this is the hardest thing right now. It's how do you convince people that it is more worthy to unplug and live a real life offline? How do you convince people of that? Especially this younger generation, mine included, that have grown up with it in their back pocket. And I think, especially after the pandemic, I think the
Hmm.
elephant in the room that we're not talking about, in addition to social media's power, is social dynamics post COVID isolation and lockdown are still weird. But I think now, post COVID, there's a lot of staying at home and there's not as many people say third spaces, like places where a person can
Okay.
hang out for free that aren't work or home. So there's just not as much communal architecture anymore. And there aren't as many like free, fun, accessible events to go to. There are certainly still some. I have found my way, but I just think a lot of that has gone away. And now I notice a lot of people, mean, we could argue all day long about RSVPs to events and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because I think people are like, well, what's in it for me? Like, do I want to commute across town? Do I want to go to this? I got so used to staying inside my house for 2 years, and I realized I have my snacks there and it's really comfy and I don't have to change out of my sweatpants. So maybe I'll just stay home, right? And I think so many of us are working from home now. Like we're just home all the time.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, let's give a shout out to our mutual friend Catherine, because again, like that actually stuff like again like the Gen AI Collective, where it's kind of bringing folks out their home, even if it is for like
Right.
more focused kind of reason. But if that kind of helps, yeah, get people out there home to a third space, then yeah, that's some of the kind of solutioning that I can see around that. So yeah, again, like shout out to Catherine. Yeah, a little Easter egg if she is listening.
Catherine,
Yeah, if she's listening, we'll tag
Yeah.
her.
for
Do
the
a little
audience
accent.
and for me and for the audience, who are we talking about?
Sean and I have a mutual friend. Her name's Catherine McMillan. Shout out. She lives here in DC and she works in the AI space. And this will be a great segue to talk about AI. Works in the AI space and is really concerned about AI and future of work and future of human activity and relationships, right? And so she has taken that existential fear and created a whole event series for people to get together. And it kind of touches on Jocelyn's point, right? Of like, how do you get people offline and be like, wow,
Yeah.
real life is worth living and great. No one told her to do this. They weren't like, we'll give you a ton of money and acclaim if you host these events. It really just started as kind of a grassroots thing. It's really hard to get that stuff off the ground. And so it is very difficult to do these kind of things and to build community. But once you get over that curve, right, and
Hmm.
then you're at the other tail end, I think it is worth it. And I'm just like segueing all the way now
There you go.
to the AI existentialism. So we've talked about social media and how women are on social media, and now here we are in the AI age, and we see a lot of AI in social media, but also, just a lot of interacting with AI models outside of that. I hear a lot of conversations, especially here in DC, where people
Yeah.
are into policy and regulation. I hear a lot of AI doomsday talk, right? There's a
Interesting.
lot of there's a lot of fear around AI, which is understandable. But I think the doomsday talk I hear about often is very existential risk, right? It's very, there's going to be a Terminator style horrible killer AI one day. And that's really not what keeps me up at night. I'm worried about the compounding of this social problem that we've already observed. I'm worried that people are lonely, people are disengaged, people are indoors, people are on their phones all the time. There's a vulnerability there. I'm worried that AI companies and the powers that be are going to exploit that. Looking at you, AI companions, right? And I'm worried that people will choose to live in this kind of augmented social media techie AI reality instead of the actual big wide real world. And that's my AI doomsday. It's not, that there are robots with guns in the streets. It's that there's a whole city, a whole country of people that are lonely and don't have anyone to talk to and feel like they don't have any other option but to stay with themselves and keep chugging away with their technology.
So one tiny plug because it's not going to solve the Brave New World you kind of just set up for us right there. But the episode we recorded before this is with a brilliant scientist named Swapnil Mehta. And the whole episode was him showing the audience how you can use the algorithms, peel back a little of the matrix and how you can make the algorithm your puppet sometimes. But it doesn't solve, again, the bigger kind of social things that you brought up that are extremely important.
I wonder if there could be an AI that's designed to incentivize real life interactions. Like you get your AI companion only works after you've proven you've interacted in the real world.
Are you familiar with Pokemon Go from a few years ago?
Oh,
It got people outside, and sometimes it got people into
in
interesting
traffic.
situations. Yeah, sometimes literally in traffic. Where the places you go. But yeah, I think there's something to that, Jocelyn. Yeah.
I don't think everyone needs to be catered to, and not everything needs to be gamified and reward incentivized and fun. I think this is one of the issues I have with all of this tech revolution is it's made life frictionless. Things are too easy right now, and human relationships are not easy. Even our most functional ones, right? Like our best friends, our spouses, our the people that we're closest to, those relationships are really difficult
Yeah.
sometimes, probably the majority of the time, right? And maintaining that is hard and psychologically taxing and very emotional, and it's just tiring, and it gets old. But I think anything worth doing that has a real impact on our psyches is usually hard. And so I just kind of want to push back on that. Like, we need to make it super fun and easy for maybe we just need to tell people that sometimes it's going to be hard. There's so many times where I'm like, it'd be so much easier to go on robot mode, right? And just like stay in and isolate myself and
Mm.
disconnect from the people around me and just kind of be affectless and unemotional. So easy. Love to do that sometimes, but it's not healthy in the long run. And there are so many nights where I'm like, man, it would be great to stay right here in this cozy apartment and not talk to anyone and not challenge myself and not take the metro across town and go to an event that might be shitty, right? Like, it might suck. I might have a terrible time. Or I might have a great time. Who knows? I think for so many of us, we just get into that trap of like, oh, it's going to be hard. Yeah, it's going to be hard. But life was not meant to be a cakewalk.
Mhm. This makes me think of one of my favorite metaphors is the sea squirt. Yeah,
No.
Go on.
it looks like what it sounds like.
Okay, a sea squirt. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, a squid
It's a little squirt. It's it's like a little blob.
keeps you
I
very.
mean, please, you have to superimpose whatever that is
Yeah,
right
please
in the
edit this.
middle. The people need to know what it is. Go on.
Sea squirt is born mobile, and it's a little tadpole, and it's do 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 do, and it's moving around, and it's swimming along, and its whole kind of it's trying to get to a rock that it will stay on for the rest of its life, and it never moves from that location, and therefore it, in essence, eats its own brain. It no longer needs that function to
Mm.
move it because it doesn't need to expend any energy or effort.
Got it.
So don't eat your own brain. Like, go swimming, go moving, go try stuff, be awkward, like face the current sometimes. Don't be a
This
sea.
is a great analogy.
Nature comes through again. Again, if we went outside more and saw these sea squirts, yeah, we'd get those.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that was a
I
good one.
totally agree. I mean, I'm all for how do we gamify things, make things playful, especially in settings where people are not in work settings and things like that. And I think we do need to find more or joy in workplaces and things where a lot of it is messaging, productivity and seriousness. But and uh, you gotta deal with awkwardness and the awkwardness of being a person trying to communicate all this mush that's in your head with somebody else and move your way through life.
Full circle to go back to being a woman and women in
Go
general.
on.
It all comes back, right? It's all related. I love this joy in the workplace idea because this is my one of my biggest struggles as a professional working young woman is my temperament is very enthusiastic, right? I'm kind of all over the place and very, very high energy and
Great for podcasts, but go on.
great for podcasts, maybe not always great for federal consulting
Oh
meetings.
gosh, no.
One thing that I really struggle with as a professional young lady is I'm like, man, I'm always like, can everyone eat a cupcake and take a nap? Can we have fun? Like, can we just chill a little bit? Oh my God, it's an Excel spreadsheet, baby girl. The world is not on fire. Everything's fine. And so I would love to push for that, for more joy in workplaces. And like, you can laugh at yourself at work. You can still be professional, but you don't have to be this like, hello, it's me, employee number 587. I'm here with like you can have a personality.
I'm not living in severance. It's like,
Yeah,
Severance.
yeah,
for real.
yeah. So if you
Oh.
could wave a magic wand and magically things are changing, and with regard to things we're talking about, like whether it's underestimating women and using these powers for good, or our relationship to each other or social media, just wave a magic wand and what does the world look like? What would you change or want to see different?
Great question. If only I had such a magic wand. I think the answer that people might expect me to say, based on the social media conversation that we've kind of gone down, is they might expect me to say, "Oh, well, I would go back to the time before the iPhone," and that's not my answer at all. I don't think it needs to be that dramatic. I love Wi-Fi. I love modern convenience. Amazon Prime is a big factor in my life, right? Like, I do love the convenience, even though I just said life needs to be harder sometimes. And so I don't want to go back to some, prior era, pre-progress and pre-technology. I think in my ideal magical wand world, people would feel like, because the environment around us would make us feel like we are able to be authentic. It sounds super cliche too, but that we're able to be authentic and to show up for each other and be there with each other without this constant need for productivity and entertainment and all of these things that the tech revolution has really imposed on us. I wish we had more little moments where it's like, look, I'm here with people I care about. I'm just chilling. I'm having a great time. Like, the sun's on my back, the wind's in my hair, right? There's the river. Everything's great. I wish we had more time to slow down, kind of like you were saying earlier, Jocelyn, with like appreciating stillness. And I wish that we had more chances and opportunities to do that. So I think in my magic wand world, people would get to do that more often, and then they would see the value in it, right? And be like, oh, it is actually kind of fun to be a person. It might be really messy and awful and painful sometimes, but it's also really fun.
Yeah. Got to deal with the harshness sometimes to really enjoy the
Mhm.
beauty of simplicity. And they said, touch grass.
Touch grass. I know everyone says that, but it's true. People always say build community and touch grass, and I'm like, oh, build community and touch grass. That's really what it is.
What's like a tiny way somebody who's feeling isolated or underappreciated, what would you suggest to them that they could do that doesn't feel overwhelmingly difficult, but just like one little step?
One little step. I love gratitude as a little step. I love taking a second to be grateful for things. I think if we want to have like a whole tie-in of all of these topics of women and their soft skills and social media and AI and all of that, I think for women, the action items could be, if you are on social media or maybe in your professional life, however you want to take this, just kind of be a little self-aware of the interactions that you are having with other people, whether that be through the content that you're producing and sharing or the way that you're speaking to your coworkers, right? Like, whatever it is, just kind of take stock of that and think, okay, am I leaving people in the world better than I found them when I do this thing? And if not, what's a way that I could change that? And it's not that every single act of your life, right, needs to be this chivalrous thing. We all have our moments. But I think, yeah, just be a little bit conscious. I mean, you're a person on this planet. We're all trying to get along together. So just be cognizant, right, of what am I posting? What am I consuming? How am I behaving? What's the effect of that?
Wise words. If there's anything else you wanted to plug, any other folks you want to shout out, feel free to, let's give you that right now.
Things I want to shout out. As we mentioned, Control Your Scroll is a book that I wrote and it'll soon be available. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it from Barnes and Noble. I can probably give you guys a link and you can post the direct to publisher link. People can get it. That's great. There's all kinds of e-commerce ways to purchase it. You will not find me on Instagram, Facebook, etc. If you do, you're being catfished. It's not me. But I do still, because I live in DC and this is a very DC thing to do, I do still have a LinkedIn account. So people can find me on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Tate. Or if they really wanted to go crazy, they could send me an email.
May I suggest to everybody that you go get a copy of Control Your Scroll and, create like a book club where you meet up in person outside.
Oh,
Nice one, Jocelyn. Nice
wow.
one.
Great. Beautiful. So much fun to talk to you guys. Thank you for having me.
It was awesome having you. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, anybody listening, thanks for checking us out. once again at the Mad Warfare Podcast.
I've come to talk with you again.